Hello, friends. First off the bat, can you hear me? Let's get that out of the way first. I'm pretty sure that my headphones input on my mic is just completely broken. It has not been working for a while. I've tried everything. I can't get it to work. So just let me know if you can hear me, and then we'll get started. And welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Friday stream. I am your hostess, Lisa. My hair is wet. I just washed it. This is what it looks like when I just washed it. How's everybody doing today? It's very cozy here in New England. We are having some like early fall weather. Nice rainy, cozy day. I think this is a very interesting comment from Expired Milk. In my opinion, racism is a component of male culture, as is patriarchy, in which women are a form of currency, a power struggle over who controls which women and their reproductive capacities. I think that's a really, really interesting comment. And just like many other components of male culture, women internalize it as their own and as an aspect of the natural order. I guess is like xenophobia or, fear of people who don't look like you or who have a different culture than you. Is that natural? Is there like a naturalness to that? We are tribal, and I talked about that in my last video. And part of tribalness is not only wanting to be part of your own tribe, but being wary and suspicious of other tribes who maybe are people who don't look like you. Is that the origin of racism? Obviously, there's like a huge socioeconomic side to it too. But I guess, is there an innateness to racism? Awful to think about. So I guess we'll get started with the article. And no one said you could hear me, but Existential Gamer says, I love the rainy weather. So I'm assuming that means you can hear me. And no one has said you can't hear me. So we'll get into it. We're going to be reading an article by Tressie McMillan Cottom. I have referenced her work in the past. I did an essay, or I did a video a couple years ago. When was Roe v. Wade overturned? I already forgot. Time is going by weird. Whenever that was. Tressie McMillan Cottom wrote about the economic impact that overturning Roe v. Wade would have on women, and I made a video about that. I forget what it's called. It's something about the economics of whatever. Yeah, it's so. Is that last year? That is wild. How? Oh my gosh. I swear to God, like being on YouTube and doing all this stuff on YouTube, time like slows down, or for some reason time has slowed down. But anyway, so that was the first time I became familiar with her work. And I really liked what she had to say about that subject. Then kind of recently, she wrote an article about the social implications of blondness. And, as a natural blonde myself, I found that quite interesting. And her thesis, I think, about that was that blondness is just a sort of like a coded shortcut for whiteness, because only white people are naturally blonde. But her argument was that blondness is celebrated. And as a blonde, I would say it's not exactly the case. But that's like a whole other topic. Also, blondes are, maybe redheads are a tiny minority in this world, but we're not seen as a minority, even though technically we are. I think only 1 to 2% of the world is naturally blonde or something like that. But anywho, so let's get into the article. Here we are. Maybe some of you saw that I put a video out yesterday about Bama Rush, which is not only a phenomenon on TikTok and other social media, but it was a film. And it was a film that I really, really enjoyed. It was on HBO Max, or they just call it Max now. And hey, Radical, thanks. So nice. I can't see the sticker though because I'm on StreamYard, but I'll have to look at it later. There you go. Anyways, I put a video out yesterday. I worked really, really hard on it. So if you didn't see it, please feel free to go watch it. I don't know if it's maybe just a topic that's not interesting to people, or like, Radical has been there for one of many spirals that I go down whenever a video doesn't really get a lot of views and stuff like that. Cause I put so much work into these I probably put 30 hours into that video, and then it's like, oh, 200 views. Okay. Well, anyways, I've talked about that at length before too. And I just have to, just roll with it, I guess. So Existential says, I have bleached hair now. I'm naturally brunette. Sometimes guys do double take because of the hair, but then they realize I'm probably about as old as their mom. What's funny is I've been very liberated from the hair and makeup and appearance and beauty ritual things for quite a while now. But I will tell you, watching this sorority content, and I'll get into that a little bit more because I have been binge watching a little bit of sorority content lately. It's kind of made me want to dye my hair or get highlights, which is something I really probably wouldn't do. But I'm like, man, maybe blonde blondes have more fun, Mango Peel says, there's this rule that you're supposed to get highlights to be as blonde as possible. If you're not, I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, and I highlighted my hair for a long time. My hair is wet, so this isn't actually like as light as it is, but this is approximately what my hair looks like. It's also the lighting in here. Anyways, whatever. So let's get into this essay. In Alabama, white tide rushes on. I haven't even skimmed it. I really don't know anything about it at all. It was posted on Stupid Poll, and I will say there were a lot of people being like, oh, anyone criticizing sororities is just a no fun, ugly feminist who can't have any fun ever. And which is an interesting take on a subreddit full of Marxists. But I'm a skip to the comments kind of gal. I haven't actually read the article, but we're going to read it right now. In Alabama, white tide rushes on. Sorority rush is a tradition at many colleges. So I'll just say I went to college in the North at a private liberal arts school. And we did have some Greek life at my school. It was very fringe. It was not the center of social life whatsoever. We had some fraternities, we had some co-ed fraternities, and I think we had two sororities. We had a white sorority, or we had a mixed sorority and a black sorority at my school. And part of my social life, or a big part of my social life, was a Greek organization, but it was I wasn't a member. I forget what they used to call us. There was a word for it, but kind of a hanger on. I was invited to join, and I'm not a joiner. So, and just being invited to join was considered like somewhat of an honor. But that's where I did all my partying, pretty much, was at their house. And yeah, I just don't like to officially join things. Also, it was the art frat, the frat of arty weirdos. And part of the application, you had to fill out an application to join. And one of the things I remember, the only thing I remember, was that you had to destroy something you loved and bring it to them. And I was like, no, thanks. Sorority rush is a tradition at many colleges. But in the South, rush inspires the same passionate zeal as college football. So another thing that, being from a small private school in the North, we had a football team, but not a thing, not like on TV or anything. Like, it's crazy to think that college sports are really this whole industry in and of themselves. Thanks to TikTok, the University of Alabama's incarnation of that tradition, peak neo-antebellum white Southern culture on display. That is such an interesting way to phrase that. Peak neo-antebellum. Kind of a oxymoron there, right? Neo-antebellum. The resurgence of this pre-Civil War culture. I have to wonder if it has anything to do with the rise of a certain politician and political movement, Make America Great Again, and that kind of stuff, right? Neo-antebellum. I mean, that political movement is very racist, and I would say is probably very threatening to liberal people, right? Is now a global phenomenon. Okay, thanks to TikTok. How many out there use TikTok or go on TikTok? I don't, and I was not aware of any of this stuff because of that, but apparently this is like a major thing on TikTok. Thanks to TikTok, the University of Alabama's incarnation of sorority rush, peak neo-antebellum white Southern culture on display, is now a global phenomenon. So not just white Southern culture, but this really roided up version of white Southern culture. Since it entered the zeitgeist in 2021, millions of people have followed Bama Rush as if they're royal watching through mason jar tinted glasses. I love that writing. Hey, Joan of Arc. As if they're royal watching through mason jar tinted glasses. When a small phalanx of white co-eds in Tuscaloosa self-organizes under the Bama Rush banner to promote their sorority, they are battling for ritual supremacy. The current sorority members choose coordinated outfits like crop tops and tennis skirts for synchronized dance routines to promote their chapters on TikTok. There is a lot of hair in these videos. Standardized for length and blonde in ratios impossible without chemical intervention. It swings exuberantly, signaling good health and traditional femininity. And this link is referring back to the article that this author wrote about being blonde. See if I can just pop that up for a second. The enduring invisible power of blonde, which she starts off by saying, if you're ever trapped between a hungry bear and a blonde with an attitude, fight the bear. Blondes don't want to fight anybody. I mean, I don't. So, interesting focus on the hair as a point of interest in these videos that she's focused on. This author, who is Black, by the way, is hair a dividing thing between Black people and white people? I guess to some extent, there's some division, right? There are some as a cultural signifier, I guess you could say. Standardized for length and blonde in ratios impossible without chemical intervention. It swings exuberantly, signaling good health and traditional femininity. So her argument that traditional femininity is associated with whiteness, that you can't be traditionally feminine if you are not white. Zesty, who is here representing sorority girls, says it's all ritualistic. We had a bunch of rituals and stuff. I was never hazed. That's good to hear. Existential says dance routines remind me of middle school when girls used to make dance routines. Zesty says my rush was 4 days long. So that was something that I really tried to emphasize in my video, how short this rush period is. And then it's like, okay, now you're in this thing for the rest of your life. That's not how you make, like significant or it's not how you make substantial relationships for the rest of your life that are healthy. Like the rush to join something, it's almost like a blitz to buy a timeshare or something. It's like there's this urgency that it has to get done. And I compared it to a game of musical chairs. It's like you have this short period of time, you have to get into a sorority and they have to like you and to go from there, Their robotic dancing to hip hop songs showcases gymnastic athleticism instead of looser routines made for the club. They keep time, but even the fact that they aren't clapping on the 1 and 3 seems intentional. Being cute rather than sexy protects them from the dreaded label trashy. Walking that fine line without mussing their hair is part of the popular appeal. So they're making these TikToks where they're dancing and they want to appear cute and cheerful and that kind of stuff, but they don't want to be seen as sexy, even though I'm sure, men find everything sexy, but expired milk, traditional femininity framed as whiteness is a Eurocentric take on the issue, but that's the POV of the author, so it makes sense until they go and say white people invented male-female sex distinction. Okay. Existential says, I don't consider sorority life as a good example of female solidarity because the whole point is to put girls against each other, whether for acceptance or male attention. I think that's a very, very good point. The Rushies who wish to join the dancers' ranks give daily reports with noticeable twang on what they are wearing. Their Southern accents are the linguistic equivalent of pointing a ring light at their shiny hair and tasteful makeup. And I sent this article to a friend of mine and who was from the South, and they were like, "What about my Southern accent? That's just how I talk." And I think there were some comments, because I did read some of the comments on this, who was like, um, it's kind of unfair, a person's accent is their accent. It's kind of unfair to you know, ding someone on their accent. So I think this is a pretty ridiculous sentence. The sororities purport to make these videos to attract the highest quality Rushies, but they have found a wider audience. So initially they were making these videos just for themselves and for their insular community of people who might potentially join them. And then the whole world started paying attention to this. Half my family has Southern accents and they're Black. So yeah, it's pretty funny to say something like Southern accents are sort of coded towards this white aesthetic or something. Pretty ridiculous, I would say. For a mainstream culture struggling to adapt to the ways that gender is exploding all around them, that accent is seductive. Okay, so there you go, guys. Bringing the gender thing into. Gender is exploding all around us. Would you agree that gender is exploding all around us and that there are a certain subset of women who are, see this gender system, traditional gender roles, as something precious that needs to be protected and reinforced? And that's where a lot of this kind of sorority stuff comes from. Ragging on accents reeks of upper echelon academic white snobbery, except the author is Black. So otherwise, I would agree with the upper echelon academic snobbery. Expired Milk says, I guess what the author is saying is part of the aesthetic. And the aesthetic is something I definitely want to talk about. Definitely, you can see this protect gender in conservative GCs. Funny, I was going to mention this. I was listening before I came on here. I was listening to a podcast. I started to listen to it called Notes on Feminism and the Culture Wars. I don't know if any of you have heard of this. I will put, hopefully this will, I don't know about putting links in here. You might have to copy paste. But it's actually about that exact topic, about how they so-called gender criticals and even women who started out as feminists have now moved away from feminism, and they are, the alliances with the right wing and stuff. And I want to talk more about that later, because it's actually something radical and I have been talking about for a long time now. And I feel like I've been very separated from any kind of movement type stuff for a while now. I've really, lone wolfing it with a few here in my my little inner circle, I guess. But it's really interesting to see other women now speaking up, saying like, wait a second, this gender critical stuff is not it has nothing to do with feminism anymore. There's so many alliances with these right-wing organizations that are homophobic, they're anti-choice, and all this other stuff. So yeah. But we can talk a little bit more about that later, because that is just, that's very interesting to me. But anyways, I feel like I'm a little bit all over the place today. I don't know why, but thank you for bearing with me. Let's get through this article. For a mainstream culture struggling to adapt to the ways that gender is exploding all around them, that accent is seductive. So there is this desire to return to this regressive idea of gender as a sort of reaction, right? Tressie McMillan Cottom is a liberal writing in the New York Times. I would guess that she is on the side of the TRAs and the trans and all of that stuff. And at the same time, she's critical of this kind of sorority culture, which is the extreme other end. So, is our culture definitely is in this struggle right now. The pendulum swung really far towards the trans stuff to the point where Biden is inviting these people to the White House and, all that kind of stuff. It's so far over. What happens when it swings in the other direction? We're going to, we're going to just be like, back in the kitchen in our little A-line dresses or something. Radical loves to talk about this topic too. As soon as I see someone call themselves GC, I know they're not a radical feminist or even a feminist. Although, my stance on it, if someone says I'm a radical feminist, and they say that because someone called them a TERF one time, even though they're anti-choice or whatever, I take them at their word and I say, yes, you are a radical feminist. This is what radical feminism is. Joan of Arc, I would be interested in hearing your take on that. I think, it's in the UK, there's some interesting things happening there with some of the heavy hitters on both the radical feminist side and the gender critical side of things. And I follow that a little bit. I don't go on Twitter too often, but I'll go on like once a week and check in with who's yelling at who and who's accusing who of being a schmeta and stuff like that. I've seen some quite gnarly things on there. It makes me very glad to have left all of that conversation because it's quite evil what some of the women say about other women. Joan of Arc says, I feel like feminist women need to organize, and if a right-leaning woman shows up and gets involved, maybe she'll change her opinions, get more lefty, but working with right-wing orgs is not the way. And I totally agree. And of course, the things that we advocate for do benefit all women, but there's some people saying, oh, we need to have a big tent, right? And invite all opinions in and that kind of stuff. And, Radical and I read a great article by Rose Rickford on her channel a few months back. And it was really a takedown of that idea that we need to include all people and all ideas in feminism. That's how you get liberal feminism and choice feminism, and how you get conservatism taking down feminism from the inside. So I want to finish this article and then we can definitely talk about that. So just hold tight for everyone who wants to have that conversation. And I don't know what else I really have to say about it, but okay, let's finish this article. For a mainstream culture struggling to adapt to the ways that gender is exploding all around them, that accent is seductive. It says these are ideal women from a regional culture that values traditional gender norms, and people cannot get enough of it. So this is maybe Radical can post a link to that video. It's on Radical's channel, I'm quite sure. Ideal women upholding traditional gender norms. That's what people can't get enough of. So if you think that we are ever gonna, this is your black pill, my friends. If you think we're ever getting out of this nonsense, we're not. And it's because there's a huge chunk of women who will uphold these values over everything else, values that say men are superior, women are subordinate creatures. Thanks, Radical. And there's not only a huge amount of women who will uphold that, but there's a huge audience for that. And that audience is also made up of women. And there's no audience for the things that we talk about. So, it's quite blackpilling. As for myself, I'm proud to say that my TikTok algorithm has not delivered me any Bama Rush videos. My voice cracked. All my exposure has been secondhand. My friends who love true crime podcasts were excited for the documentary from Rachel Fleet, Bama Rush. That's the one that I made my humble video about, that was released on Max earlier this year. My feminist academic friends forwarded me Bama Rush memes during a recent faculty dinner to dissect the kitschiness of sorority micro celebrities. Anne Helen Peterson, culture writer, has been obsessively unpacking Bama Rush 2023 like we're a 400-level sociology class, as she recently put it on Instagram. So this whole phenomenon is even throwing off micro celebrities. Pretty interesting that there's that much of a culture surrounding this. Lily says, save yourself. Always should be top priority. Put your mask on first. Put your mask on first. Existential says, agree. It's from religion mostly. Religious women wholeheartedly believe they are inferior because they're from Eve, who caused the downfall of humanity. That's super messed up. My grandma told me as much. A lot of my worlds are collapsing into the Bama Rush phenomenon, yet I am in Bama Rush's blind spot. I assume I don't get Bama Rush videos on my social media feeds for the same reason that I would not have been an ideal Bama Rush candidate when I was a co-ed. Bama Rush is very, very white, and my algorithms are programmed for me, someone who is not. Fleet's documentary touches on the inherited culture and code of conduct that filters for the right type of young woman. Thin, able-bodied, athletic, and yes, in most cases, white, to rush at the University of Alabama. I don't know if she's going to get into it, but they do have a Black sorority culture there as well, but it's quite segregated, and definitely all the big money sororities are white. And what was I going to say? In fact, I watched a video that was a tour of the exterior of the sorority houses at the University of Alabama, and some of them are just unbelievably opulent and huge mansions, and every blade of grass around them or whatever is just in place. Like they must cost an utter fortune to maintain. And then you see the Black sorority houses, and they're very, by comparison, modest and not as well kept up and whatever. And what ultimately it comes down to, and I don't know if she'll get into this, is these are organizations that are upholding not only patriarchal values, but a very unfair system of wealth inequality that is, throughout our whole country, but especially in the South, historically the most wealth inequality of any place, because that was the heart of slavery. And So when you have an organization where you have to pay to get in too, by the way, some of these sororities, you have to pay $10,000 a year to be a part of. $40,000 over the course of your college career. You think about those houses don't keep themselves up, and all the things that, the social things that they do and events and stuff. Somebody has to pay for it. It's the members. They cost a ton of money. But what do you get out of it? You potentially get employment connections, and maybe you end up earning more over your career. And so someone who couldn't afford to be a part of that is not going to have access to those same connections. And therefore, it perpetuates that system of inequality. And, there's a huge race component to that too. It's unfair that poor people or people of color, which, unfortunately there's quite a large overlap in that they don't have access to those things that could help raise them up out of that situation. Seeing that culture rendered so explicitly primes the progressive impulse to call for diversity. It feels like the response to the vague, unsettled feeling that something is wrong with Bama Rush. It could be the hair or the matching outfits or the accents, but it is clear from watching Rush talk that there are a lot of young white women involved. We fixate on that and haphazardly reach for the diversity hammer in our progressive toolkit without thinking through why that lack of diversity exists in the first place or what it tells us about the American South. Despite alumni and cultural pressure to maintain tradition, there have been a handful of attempts to integrate sorority rush at the University of Alabama over the last 3 or so decades. This is an example of the Faulkner adage that the past is never dead. When it comes to our willful collective amnesia about racism, the past isn't even past. Most recently, the university pushed to integrate the Greek system in 2013, the year the U.S. Department of Justice inquired about allegations of race discrimination in Alabama's Rush process. So, University of Alabama, sororities were de facto, segregated until 2013. And I made the argument in my video that they're kind of like still pretty segregated. Still in 2022, almost 85% of the sorority members in the Alabama Pan-Hellenic Association, comprising most of the university's sororities, were white, a percentage disproportionate to the racial makeup of the university and the state. So 85% white, 15% women of color. That's not diverse at all. I'm just gonna see if I can pop this open. So Alabama itself is 68.9% white, and it's 26.8% Black, and it's 1.6% Asian, and 4.9% Hispanic or Latinx. University of Alabama, I'm just looking at the links that she included here. Demographics, 42% come from Alabama, 57.9% come from elsewhere in the US and 88 foreign countries. 57% are women, 42% are men. I just rounded up. It's closer to 43%. And let's see. I wanted to see. Okay. In-state tuition. Geez. Oh my God. Totally insane. In-state tuition, $33,000. Out of state, $55,000. This is for the University of Alabama. It's not even that good of a school, right? It's not like a academically, that good of a school, right? They have 38,000 students. I should be sharing this tab. I don't know why I'm not. They have 38,000 students. I looked at their acceptance rate. I thought it was quite high. It was like maybe in the, I don't know if it says it here. I looked it up when I initially saw the movie a couple months ago, and I think it was like 85% or something, like a very high acceptance rate. That's why I think it's really funny in the movie when one of the girls is like, "Oh, I hope I get in. I hope I get in." It's like they have like a crazy high acceptance rate. Let me see if I can find it. University of Alabama undergraduate acceptance rate. Oh, 59.1%. Okay, so that's, still, I'm going to be a little bit of snob here. That's pretty high. Useless Strawberry flexing with her free universities. Unbelievable that college costs that much for like an okay school, right? 59%. Wild. Okay. Consider the university's failed attempts to integrate Rush in concert with its comfort with the social media blitz. While there is no definitive proof of causation between the Bama Rush popularity and the University of Alabama's fiscal health, the university is coming off of record enrollment in 2022, even as the general higher education climate in the US is being roiled by crises. Now, that idea that 57% of the students there are female and 43% are male, you have to wonder if the real intense sorority life there has something to do with that. I know in the documentary, one of the characters, Isabel, says if it wasn't for the TikTok, she wouldn't have chosen Alabama as the school that she was going to. So it was TikTok that made her choose Alabama. To me, that is like, I get being a teenager and teenagers like weird and make weird decisions about things, but that is like choosing to go to a school because you saw it on TikTok is just pretty wild to me, but I'm not a teenager in 2023, so I have no idea about that. Alabama's cousins in Florida are dealing with a hostile political leader and their takeover of their curriculum. So Florida is 2 states away from Alabama. Actually, I don't know. Does Alabama actually border the Panhandle? Maybe it does. West Virginia is facing fiscal insolvency of its flagship public university. The general public's faith in higher education is waning, whatever the individual's politics. I think that that's true. The general public's faith in higher education is waning. Definitely seeing the, what these kids get out of education versus like what it costs. It just does that part of it doesn't seem to make any sense. Like, doesn't it make more sense kind of to just go to work? I don't know, but then it's like every job you kind of need a college degree, but then like what they cost versus what you get out of it. I don't know, man. I would say, yeah, I feel that a little bit. General public's faith in higher education is waning. For too much of the public, higher education's complex problems are reduced to culture wars about diversity, gender studies, or critical race theory, which have become the brands of many elite Northeastern schools. In this climate, these sororities' annual viral juggernaut is counter-programming to the Northeastern elite university brand. So college being seen as this thing that's going to radicalize your kids into being liberals, and schools like University of Alabama are not a place where your kids are going to get radicalized into being liberals, for sure. Hey, Ice Goddess. The Bama version is wholesome, non-threatening, traditional femininity in Lululemon athleisure. Incidentally, I heard that the guy who started Lululemon named it that because Asian people, or I think it was specifically Japanese people, can't say Lululemon. And he thought it would be funny if he named it something that they wouldn't be able to say. Fun fact of the day. Okay. Bama version is the wholesome, non-threatening, traditional femininity for free. Welcome to Emotional Labor 101 Bama Rush, ladies. You already aced it. These young women's world, which exists outside of the frame of the TikTok video, deserves to be taken seriously. Their emotional labor moves a lot of capital, and they're not just emotional labor, but they are doing free marketing work for that university. They are doing unpaid. I mean, they may get paid through TikTok or something like that, but they are doing work on behalf of the university, and they are not getting compensated for that at all. And their sorority system is a legitimate status culture, just like fraternities and sports leagues, with a clear hierarchy. The top dogs get more privileges and honor than the lesser ranked sororities, and they do discuss that in the film. And what do you have to do to get into a top ranked sorority and get access to those privileges and honor? You have to be hot and you have to be rich. To defend their position, sororities have a code of conduct to keep its sisters and the wannabes in line, something else I talked about in my video that makes them very cult-like. How to talk, how to dress, how to act, and most important of all, how to aspire. Oh, that just reminded me a little bit of, you know what reminds me of a sorority, actually? FDS, female dating strategy, how to aspire. I will never get over, because I used to be part of that community. I will never get over when they said, if you're not here to F word men, get out. You're not welcome here. Okay, this little sorority mentality there. The code is so elaborate that aspiring pledges can hire rush coaches to learn exactly what it takes to be the right kind of woman. Oh, you know what this reminds me of? Radical Ramblings, if you're out there. We talked about the femininity coaches for trans women. And, our idea was that, well, if they're actually just women, then why do they need a coach to tell them how to be women? And of course you are. I thought you had a meeting or something today. That's just what comes to mind, right? The code is so elaborate that aspiring pledges hire rush coaches to learn exactly what it takes to be the right kind of woman. They are not the right kind of woman as themselves. Okay, so you already have to fit yourself into a box to now be friends with these certain people. right? Um, that's not organic friendship. That's not healthy. That's not good for you. And it's just like with the, yeah, if you're being yourself, Lily, you're doing it wrong. Exactly. They don't want to be friends with you. They want to be friends with this avatar you've created. That's like their idea of what you should be like. I'd rather, and it's so funny too, because in that documentary, Isabel says, I want to find people who will love me for me no matter what. And I'm like, I don't think this is it, girl. An avatar, a doll, a representation of a person, this, you know, AI version or something. That's not you. Another thing you see in the film is the character Michaela. She's real, like she may even be neurodivergent or something. Like she's really, 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 really shy, and painfully so. Can't perform this specific kind of femininity at all because of her shyness. And she hires a rush coach who's like doing her hair and putting her in all these outfits and stuff, and you're like, man, this girl is never going to fit in with these people. And ultimately she doesn't. So you can't, you know, I guess a little spark of that has to be within you to begin with, but it boils down to performing hyperfemininity and settling for referent or secondhand authority while deferring to masculine power. So this actually is a lot of the things that we always talk about here. So I'm glad we chose this article today, or I chose it. It boils down to performing hyperfemininity and settling for referent or secondhand authority while deferring to masculine power. Can we just like frame this sentence? This is it. She is like hitting the nail on the head, right? Ice Goddess says femininity is so uncomfortable. A lot of pinchy clothing and too small shoes. No thanks. Jeep Wrangler says it's so sad, honestly, a community where they all have to fit into this box. Existential says they confuse validation popularity with actual friendship. Blorbo says, I get it though. I'm really shy and it's so hard to make friends. Sorority life does look like inbuilt friendship from the outside, but they're not really friends with you. They're friends with this thing, this facade that you've made that you have to uphold all the time, or else they will withdraw their friendship. It's totally conditional. It's conditional acceptance. And that's actually what's kind of quite frightening about it. Lily says also a lot of hyper self-consciousness, so not worth it. You are not free to be yourself. But I love this sentence. It boils down to performing hyperfemininity and settling for referent or secondhand authority while deferring to masculine power. So they can only be in this system. Women cannot have power compared to men. Women can only have power over other women. So that is what we accept when we accept patriarchy. We will never have any legitimate power, any real power. Men are the ones who will only ever have legitimate and real power. All we are left with is fighting for power amongst women. But why? And it's when you frame it that way, it's like, why would anyone want that? That sounds awful. And yet a lot of women are super, super into it. Joan of Arc, thank you for getting it. It's a perfect sentence. I totally agree. So frats have the power because frats determine ultimately it's the frats that rank the sororities. So it's the frats who determine who are the better sororities. It's the ones they want to put on their calendar. The frat leads the social calendar. So they say, well, we want to have a mixer with you, y'all, and we want to have a mixer with y'all, and they get to choose. And so it's ultimately the frats who are like, Yes, you've picked the hottest girls this year, so we will mix with you. You haven't, so sorry, you can't interact with us. Plorbo says we should start rad fem sororities. For Rush, you have to stop shaving and read Scum Manifesto. The cute dances and outfits of the day also reveal how complicated it is for today's young women to live feminist lives. Well, ain't that the truth? The cute dances and OOTD. Okay, I wanted to talk about this, and maybe I'll talk about this a little bit more after the article, because I want to talk about how I've been watching this content over the last couple days. And it's so aesthetic, right? And I think Radical and I talked about this in a stream recently, where someone said, radical feminism, but make it aesthetic. We need a radical feminist outfit of the day, radical feminist get ready with me, radical feminist morning routine, and make it aesthetic. And, people said, hey, if Andrea Dworkin looked like a K-pop idol, then we would have radical feminism everywhere. And it's like, it's a funny statement, right? Because it's kind of like, well, then it wouldn't be radical feminism, right? It would be something else. But that idea that the aesthetic helps to sell an idea, which is ultimately the heart of fascism, by the way. The aesthetic helps to sell the idea, but it has nothing to do really with feminism. But I've actually thought about that. I'm like, could I do like a radical feminist get ready with me video and try to actually make it aesthetic? I'm not really good at creating aesthetic content. That's the only problem. And I want to talk a little bit about that later, but yeah. Okay. Rushies are cautioned not to speak of boys during rush, but that is a silence that screams. As becomes clear over the course of Fleet's documentary, what men might want from these young women shapes their beauty standards and obsession with weight and career plans and outfits and friend groups. And that definitely is a big theme in the documentary. I didn't talk about that too much in my video, but the men do put a lot of pressure on the women to be beautiful and to be thin. And the women in that video or in that film talk about that a lot. And ultimately, yeah, it's a performance for men. It's not for other women. Like, it's so interesting whenever women are like, oh yeah, women, nobody paints their nails for men. Women do it for other women. It's like, no, not really. If we were on an island that was just women, no one would be painting their nails. Existential says, I know cottagecore has trad wife leanings, but I love that aesthetic. Yeah, I do too. It determines a sorority's rank, the value of its members, and its ultimate power to influence the campus culture as future alumni. The Deep South sorority culture gets its power from the rewards that come from compliance. You get cool campus housing. By the way, some of those houses are absolutely gorgeous. Cool friends, study buddies, social invitations, a defined dating pool, and maybe a little social media fame. The rewards don't stop at the edge of campus. Sorority members anywhere come with networks that can grease the machinery of mobility. But in the Deep South, of which Alabama is a cultural and geographic linchpin, the sorority system carries greater influence. It gets you close to women who are close to men who tend to dominate the state's network power. It gets you close to the women who are close to the men. Very backwards. Very traditional, patriarchal, hierarchical vibes. At Alabama, that power is most visible in the form of the machine. The university's not so secret society that extends the power of the many predominantly white fraternities and sororities it represents. The machine is like the mob with training wheels, teaching the fine art of political influence through campus elections and grooming university student leaders for politics and industry. Greek life and the machine do the same work that supper clubs and social clubs and secret societies do at elite universities and boarding schools in every privileged enclave across the country. When you think of fraternities and sororities as the gateway to a seat at that table, at the table that manages the social reproduction of the entire region's cultural, economic, and political elite, rushing is serious business. Young women know that. For 20 years, they have outpaced their male peers in educational attainment and achievement. Today's traditional age female college student could be inheriting up to 4 generations of gendered expertise on navigating higher education, the bureaucracy of achievement. Progressives and conservatives have at least one thing in common. For decades, both sides have told young people that going to college overdetermines their life's trajectory. They must amass all the power and wealth they can in one shot, or their lives will be abject failures. For women, there is the added burden of amassing all the economic capital possible while also earning all the social capital to be desired. And I think too for women, because in this traditional world, your ability to amass economic capital is completely tied to your ability to attach yourself to a man. And that is more easily done when you're younger. So as a man, there's this idea that you kind of have your whole life to amass economic capital or to create your fortune, right? You start your career and you build your career. That's the idea as a man. As a woman, you got to get married. So that's how you make your wealth in this world, in this hyper traditional world, right? I mean, we're hopefully in this space liberated beyond that kind of thinking, that we can make a life for ourselves independent of a man. But this is very focused on getting married. Radical says, where is the focus on education in all this? You know, the thing you go to university for. This is much about socializing, much about finding a partner, and doing it and early while you're still hot enough to secure a partner. Because women got that expiration date on us, y'all. We got that expiration date. You're going to hit that wall. By the time you turn 25, you're hitting that wall, you know? Joining an elite sorority solves multiple problems at one time. It gives you a college cohort, seeds your LinkedIn connections, and grooms you into the ideal partner for the men who are joining the fraternities. Elite status cultures invest a lot in marriages, and that is no different in the South. For all the sorority sisters talk about bonding and lifelong friends, the power of these sororities is not sisterhood. It's the brotherhood that desires it. Bama Rush codifies the many incentives behind marrying power and turns them into a long audition to become a handmaiden to patriarchal privilege. Hello. I love this article. Wow. You know, I said it in my essay, but then I actually worked on my essay with my brother a little bit, or at least I read it to him and he gave me a little feedback on it. And I was like, I can't say this in front of my brother, so let me take it out. But originally I was going to say, and I do say that the whole point of sororities is classifying women from hottest to least hot. Tressie, McMillan, Cottom here makes it sound like this is an audition to become a wife. To me, I was like, this is just an audition to become a sex partner. Like you're arranging the girls into proper like sex partners for the males in the fraternities. That was a little bit too spicy to say in front of my brother, so I took that line out. But yes, this writer is spitting cold facts, y'all. The MRS degree concept never died. College is about money, not learning. Expired milk. The funny thing is that despite going to a very good university, classes were a bit of an afterthought. The biggest focus was on networking, getting your foot in the door. You know, you can use college kind of for whatever you want to use it for. So if you want to use it as a social networking tool, you can do that. You can go to class and study really hard, and you can do that too. And maybe you can do a bit of both, and that would be probably the optimal way to use college. Existential says, if I could go back in time, I definitely have more fun. I dropped out because I was overwhelmed with classes and made no friends, dumb decisions, but it is what it is. I was very academically focused in school until 9/11, and then I had quite an existential crisis, and that was the only time in my life I've experienced like depression, really. And then my grades did not do so good. But other than the year after 9/11, I pretty much got straight A's, and I partied a little bit. So I feel like I had a pretty good balance. And then in grad school, I was definitely like way, way, way more focused on academics, which probably most people in grad school are. You don't go to grad school really to party, right? But yeah, this isn't just another like hitting it out of the park right here. Elite status cultures invest a lot in marriages. That is no different in the South. For all the sorority sisters talk about bonding and lifelong friends, the power of these sororities is not sisterhood. It's the brotherhood that desires it. Bama Rush codifies the many incentives behind marrying power and turns them into a long audition to become a handmaiden. Dude, she is not holding back. This is really, really, really good stuff. Snaps for the article. Wife, please. It's about sexual access. I could not agree more. This is true too. Yeah, though I went to business school. I got an MBA for my graduate degree, so it was very networking heavy. For show. Fire. Agreed. Becoming pretty enough to sit at the right hand of machines that chew up history and the future is not my idea of getting ahead. Who said there's no radical feminism in the New York Times? My gosh, if this is not radical feminism, this is like Zam, right? Becoming pretty enough to sit at the right hand of machines that chew up history and the future is not my idea of getting ahead. I wish I wrote that. That is like beyond fire. Really good. One biracial Rushy in Fleet's documentary discovers the true qualifications to this culture when joining the sorority does not get her the same male attention as her white sisters. I don't know who she's talking about. Even if you could integrate Bama the brand, you cannot integrate Bama the social reproduction machine. The impulse to diversify Bama Rush got me thinking about the book Elite Capture. Author Olufemi Otaiwo's thesis is that radical terms dart. I'm not really familiar with that expression. I'm gonna have to Oh, terms dart. That's some academia speak or something. I'm not familiar. Is anyone familiar with terms dart? Um, like identity politics and racial capitalism have lost their radical potential. They are victims of elite capture, the process by which the nominal winners of our system strip the terms down to a brand. In the case of integrating Bama Rush, no one is talking about the radical roots of integration. They don't even mean integration as an accommodationist principle. They mean the neoliberal branding of integration as cosmetic diversity. So the idea of integration is a radical principle. Thank you, Zesty. It says terms of art are like lingo specific to a field. Thank you, thank you. So integration and promoting diversity is actually, radical idea. And it can't be done in this sort of superficial cosmetic way. I guess that's her point. That would look like adding a few plus size bodies, a racially ambiguous but non-white young woman, and some dark hair here and there, and calling that fixing Bama Rush for our new sensibilities. We can quibble about whether integration ever had a hope of being radically transformative, but it was more radical in practice than its mealy-mouthed descendants, diversity and inclusion. But reaching for the diversity canard to fix our discomfort with Bama Rush is an overreach. This is Alabama, the University of Alabama. This is the university where George Wallace infamously stood in the classroom doorway on the first day of class in 1963 to block Vivian Malone and James A. Hood from matriculating. You look at the images from that period of massive resistance to school integration, at the crowd shots of young white men and women chanting at Vivian and James, who are flanked by the National Guard. I just got chills as they broker integration with their lives. So this is how radical integration actually is. That these people had to risk their lives to do it. The idea that joining a sorority is integration feels hollow, but especially at a place where integration once meant so much. It might be reasonable to want everyone to have access to what Bama Rush promises, but the sorority does not have the power to confer it, not really. It can only brand it. It can only brand it. Oh my gosh, why am I having trouble with the sentence? It can only brand it, and if it works really hard and looks pretty while doing it, can grow up to marry it. And I ask, why would anyone want to integrate that? Sometimes the proper place for something is the past, and the thing just does not yet know it. I got chills again. What a bomb. What did, like, I'm just in awe of this article. So is the author. I'm for smashing the whole thing. I mean, this conclusion is so radical, right? It might be reasonable to want everyone to have access to what Bama Rush promises. But the sorority does not have the power to confer it, really, because sororities don't actually have any power. It can only brand it, and if it works really hard and looks really pretty while doing it, it can grow up to marry power. Why would anyone want that? Why would anyone want to integrate that? get rid of that. Sometimes the proper place for something is the past, and the thing just does not yet know it. Unbelievable. Really good. Super radical. New York Times. Okay. I'm not mad at it. And this is the kind of stuff that like we say all the time, right? Do we want more diverse CEOs or do we want fewer CEOs? Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, do we want to diversify this shit system or do we want to get rid of it and have something that's, actually good? So, totally fire article. Loved it. There was a comment on Reddit. I want to see if I can grab it. Go on my Reddit. It's gonna like show you my username. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, my internet's very slow, by the way, too. Let's see. Okay. I want to find this one comment on here. Okay, I'm going to share this. I don't think you'll be able to see my username. More capitalist female CEOs. I also don't think we need a more diverse performer and femininity club. Just throw the whole club out. Honestly, totally. Yeah. Performative, right? Totally agree. Girl bossify capitalism. Totally agree. Reject the whole thing. It is the writer's obsessive and borderline violent disdain for the aesthetics of these people that seems troubling. I didn't get that at all. These are men too writing these, comments here. So I didn't get that at all. Okay, this right here. Here we go. That article is the female equivalent of that meme with a sullen man in a corner at a party consoling himself that he's superior to everybody there. All these sorority gals are having fun and enjoying life, and the author unfortunately has to bear the heavy feminist cross of perpetual unhappiness. What she and every other progressive like her doesn't realize is they could be happy too if they weren't so focused on being unhappy. Such wisdom always seems to escape such individuals for some odd reason. In other words, ladies, just put your makeup on, go to the party, S that D, you're going to be happy, right? Stop complaining. That article is the female equivalent of that meme with a sullen man in a corner at a party, consoling himself that he's superior to everybody there. I just feel like this person totally missed the point. Did we read the same article? Oh, these girls are just they're so happy and carefree. Like they're really not. They're paying $10,000 a year to be stressed out that if they make the slightest mistake, they will be kicked out, and then they will, this is what I really liked about this article is she articulates why it's so important for these girls to be a part of the sorority. And it's not for sisterhood and it's not for friendship. It's for access to power, because the only way that women can access power is by that you can't get it yourself. We still, it's 2023, we can't get our own power. At least not in this framework of things, right? You can't get your own power, but you want power because everybody wants power. That's a natural human thing. You want access to resources and all the rest of it, but you can't get it because you're a woman. So you have to get access to it, which other women gatekeep your access to men. And so you have to appease the women to get access to the men. You're just jealous. Actually, I think the message there is you're ugly, right? I think when men say feminist, what they mean is ugly. Because also, they often pair feminist with ugly. Ugly feminist or obese feminist. That's very common way that these men think. And these, by the way, these are leftist men, our brothers. So I have talked about that. And I actually hadn't been on Stupid Poll in a pretty long time. Harry too, don't forget Harry. But I hadn't been on Stupid Poll since I made that video about Stupid Poll. That was it. I was just like, I'm done with this. And then I just checked in and I was like, oh, they talked about Bam and Rush. Let's see what they had to say. Why can't you just have fun? These girls are having so much fun. These girls are having so much fun. Oh, you're a nasty feminist who just can't have any fun. Just marry a man and have fun and have his babies and have so much fun doing it. Oh no, guess I'm ugly. Whatever shall I do? Women are accused of jealousy so much when in reality, odds are they're just perplexed to the point of noticeable frustration. I think that jealousy is the thing that does exist, but I think it gets thrown around a lot too. Whew. So that was quite an article. Oh, I actually want to talk about this. So let me get rid of this. Let's go back to here. It's me. Hi. I'm the problem. It's me. Stupid Poll pissed me off this morning talking about that UK serial killer nurse saying the hospital covered for her for so long because vagina pass. So Lucy Letby, she was on my list of secondary topics for today. I actually had a few. I want to say a couple more things about the Alabama stuff, though. I just read a book for work last week that was a novel about racism in America, and it was partly set in Alabama. And I was like, damn, as a white person, I'd be afraid to go to Alabama. I can't even imagine what it's like for Black people there. Like, I'm afraid of the white people in Alabama. And I'm a white person. In Tressie, McMillan, Cottom's eyes, I'm the whitest of white people because I'm a blonde. So yeah, I don't know, man. Like, Alabama scares me. I find that world scary. It's so interesting. America's like so diverse, right? Like, the culture and stuff in Connecticut has just like, a coworker said she went to University of, I guess you're saying University of Alabama. And when I gave her this look, she was like, no, it's not what you think. Exactly. I'm like, different world, right? And I've traveled quite a bit. I've been to a lot of states. I've been quite all over the US, and there's certain things that are very the same everywhere you go in the US. And there are certain things that are like, just, might as well be in a different country. It's so different. Tom's in Ohio. Existential up here in New England, this culture just isn't as entrenched like beauty pat. Yeah, there's so many things like we don't have here, you know. Expired Milk says Huntsville, Alabama is pretty neat. The entire town works for NASA. Went grocery shopping with rocket scientists. Also, they've got a massive duck pond. I'm sure there's cool places everywhere. And like, I don't know, man. I would feel like my sister and I used to describe it because I used to live in a super, super, super rich area. And I, you know, I would say like there's like these two extremes of where you wouldn't want to be caught at night having a car problem where you're pulled over on the side of the road, right? Like you get a flat tire or something. You don't want to get a flat tire in some like scary, sure, I'll get like called racist for this, but you don't want to get, you know, like in an urban area that's like, you know, not a good area, right? You don't want to get a flat tire there, but you also don't want to get a flat tire in like backcountry Greenwich, Connecticut either. Okay. Those are not safe places to be either. Even if you are white. That's a fact. So there's like those two extreme ends, right? Where people are not normal. I fell in love with South Carolina, Myrtle Beach. So awesome. And you can get a decent house for much cheaper. Interesting. I have a good friend from there, so I'll let them know. Same for Lawrence, Massachusetts. I think what you're saying about not getting, you know, a flat tire at night because it's scary. I point this out when other radfems scratch their heads when I say I don't want to join their women's land in rural Florida. Right. Okay, so that's that. My thoughts on Alabama. Sorority vlogs. Okay, so I've specifically been binge watching this girl's channel. Her name is Lauren Norris. Let me see if I can just pull it up so you get like an idea. I'm gonna like auto play the audio maybe. Stand by. Oh no, okay, here we go. So when we talk about aesthetic, gotta go back to sharing my tab. This is the aesthetic, right? This is the aesthetic that radical feminists are lacking. And I did watch quite a few of her videos, and they are like beyond aesthetic. This vibe, this pink, the hair, the makeup. She's pretty, you know what? She's pretty average looking, but then she looks really good with makeup. Oh boy, I just got cavities. What is it about this? Oh, thank you for joining us. Have a great rest of your day. What is it about this aesthetic that is like super watchable? You know, I don't know why. Like, I just find this very, like, there's like a coziness to it or something. The funny thing is, this gal, so she's like from Alabama, went to the University of Alabama. She has all these sorority house videos and stuff like that. I actually subscribed to her because she just moved to New York City. I'm like, I almost wanted to comment on the video. I never, ever, ever, ever leave mean comments ever on YouTube. But I kind of wanted to, I kind of wanted to leave a comment like, what the hell are you going to do in New York City? Like, besides get like chewed up. I mean, a person like this just like doesn't belong. Sorry, have to say it. Jonah Bark, I can't with this kind of lady. So unrelatable. And you know, I was talking in the comments of the video I put out yesterday with Radical about like the hyper consumption that it takes to maintain this aesthetic. And she and I did a stream, I think it's on my channel, about we did the Met Gala, but really it was a secret stream about the wastefulness of fast fashion. And I'm gonna say it, I love this aesthetic. And it because there's something what's comforting to me about it, it's very like 2011, 2012 YouTube vlogs. Like I haven't seen content like this at all since then. Like I thought that this content just like didn't exist. And the fact that it does and it has like millions of views is just totally bonkers to me, because I'm like, I didn't think people vlogged like this is the whole like Bath and Body Works candles aesthetic, you know, like the here's all my TJ Maxx crap and stuff. Like oh, Joan of Arc says Hitomi Mochizuki. I will look that up. But yeah, I'm just like, it's so wild. 5 million views. First 24 hours in our sorority house. My winter night routine. Miss Alabama USA experience. What I eat in a week. I watched that one. College day in my life. It's soft and feels like cotton candy. Mid 2000s fever dream. The color palette. I totally agree. But there's this like wastefulness to it. And you know, I took some notes, just wrote down a few things for stream today, and I wrote consumption, disgusting and wasteful, intoxicating, cheerful and happy, mood, aesthetic. The problem is it's fake and a facade. Yeah, like I'm like all over the place, and I apologize for that, but because sometimes my mind is, that's the ADHD, I guess. My mind is going like a million miles a minute. But Radical and I talked about how hyperconsumption, especially of clothing, which is primarily, you know, that consumption is done by young women. That's one of the major drivers of climate change, is hyperconsumption of clothing. Thanks. My minimalist sporty aesthetic. I really like, that's the thing. I don't think I can ever make aesthetic content because I'm so anti-consumption. Like I can't buy, you know, like I can't buy something to make things look cute to put it in a video. I can't do that. You know? That's a good point too. How do you have time for this in college? It's so, to achieve this, you have it, there's such a throwawayness to it, you know? And like I did buy nothing for 2 years. I bought nothing for 2 years. Then in the last year I did buy some clothes and stuff, because like stuff was getting holes in it. Like I needed to replace things. But you know, even like, I'll tell you what, guys, my sister came over, and my sister is like way into buying clothes. She's like clothes horse is what they, you know, term for that. And I said to her, "Oh, I'm posting these fitness videos now, and I want some like cute clothes to wear. And will you help me like do some shopping?" Are you guys already disgusted by that yet? And so we went on and we looked at some different websites and stuff. And I'm like, you know what? As much as I want to like fit into this world of YouTube fitness where all the women look exactly the same, they're all dressed exactly the same, there's like a total aesthetic to it, right? And I'm like, I want to fit into that. Like part of me desires to fit into that. I cannot buy these clothes because I know they were made with female slave labor. And that's why I can't do it. I can afford it. I could buy it if I wanted to, and then I would fit in with YouTube. I can't, it would just cause me so much pain to buy something that was made by a slave. I can't do it. Like, unless, sometimes you reach the point where you're like desperate because your stuff's falling apart or something. That's a little different. Like, yeah, we all have to be part of this dumbass system, but like minimize it, harm reduction. I don't know. Like, just you guys are so funny. I just feel like, yeah, like part of me wants to be part of that, and like, but then I can't and I never will. And that's, and then beyond the fact that, like, at least on the fitness side of things, plastic surgery is so common. They all wear makeup to work out. I will never do any of those things, and therefore I'm never going to fit in anyways. I have to find a way to do my own thing. And as much as I want it to be aesthetic, like, I just don't think it ever can be. Shop with me video. Please kill me first. I like your current style. It's honestly goals for me. You could try looking at thrift places. Reminds me of that time there was a day against consumption, International Day Against Consumption. Stop buying. I'm telling you, I didn't buy anything but food for 2 years. I didn't buy any clothes. Oh my gosh, you guys are so funny. So funny. I did a closet tour actually once, but it was like my minimalist closet. And yeah, I don't know. It's just t-shirt, sweatpants, yoga pants for me. And I can't do it. I don't want to ever wear makeup. And I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. Part of the reason is when you start with that stuff, it never stops. You're never done. And there are times in my life, well, like, at least with respect to my appearance, I feel that I'm done. I don't feel like there's things to do, and I know, because I used to be in that world. You're always like, oh, I got to do my nails, or I got to get my nails done, or whatever. I got to do my hair, my highlights, style my hair. I got to do my makeup, shave. There's always something to be shaved. There's always tanning. Do your eyebrows, everything. Do your skincare. It never ends. It never stops. There's always like that to-do list that's lurking there in the background. And I don't want to do that. Once you start, you can't stop. And then as you get old, like, that's the other thing too, like getting older. I'm like, by my age, by 40, the amount of women who've had some kind of cosmetic thing or Botox or something, it's insane. And I don't want to do any of that stuff. And I don't feel like I need to. So I do feel free in that way. Beauty culture is an addiction. Like, that's what I'm saying. It never stops. I remember, there would always be something on my to-do list. The only thing is, like, when I look at my videos now and I compare myself more, like, since I've been making the fitness videos, I compare myself, and what comparison is the thief of joy. The only thing that I really am unhappy about my appearance is my skin color, because I'm really pale. But I'm like, I have to challenge myself to accept that, because I just don't. I look blindingly white, and I'm like, I look anemic. But it's just seeing myself in videos looking so white. But what am I going to do about that? My one regret in life, I have one significant regret in life. Any other regrets I have are minor, is tanning. I tanned for 2 years in tanning beds. And it's, I got a skin cancer screening. I went to a skin cancer screening. I've had many skin cancer screenings at this point, but the first time I went, they make you fill out your history with respect to sun exposure and stuff. And it says, how many times have you used tanning beds? And it was broken out by 1 to 2, 3 to 4, 5 to 6, 7 to 8, 9 or more. And the reason they break it out that way is because those are the statistically significant amounts of radiation that each of those steps increases your likelihood of getting skin cancer. So, I used a tanning bed dozens of times. I don't know, 100 times. So I'm way at the end, which is, we grew up in that era where that was a thing. That's not a thing anymore. Unfortunately, I also grew up in the era where smoking was a thing. So I did that too, because that was also cool. I'm very glad that tanning beds are not really a thing anymore, because it means young girls won't get sucked into that. I wish I loved my pale skin more. And I think it's very funny too, because it's the skin color is like total grass is greener thing, right? Because there's like a substantial portion of the world like does skin lightening and bleaching and stuff like that. Expired milk, we're of one mind once again. Meanwhile, a decent portion of the world is trying their best to be as pale as possible, bleaching their skin. Yep, there you go. So grass is greener, right? I would like to have a little darker skin, and some people like to have a little lighter skin. See you later, Joan of Arc. We'll be wrapping up here shortly ourselves. Useless to tan 2 times when you were 13. So, I used to hate being olive skinned as a child and wanted to be fair. Same with my sister. My sister has quite dark skin, and she has brown hair and brown eyes, and she, always talked about it. And I don't know if she ever really did much tanning. But yeah, I don't know. Wanting to fit in, wanting the aesthetic, like I get it. And I don't have any hate for these sorority girls at all. I really just feel sympathy and empathy towards them. Any tan, natural or not, is just not safe. It's just not safe, any sun exposure. And, luckily I've had very limited sun exposure besides that, but I'm like, when is it going to hit me? Because like, I don't have wrinkles, but I'm gonna at some point. Dude, those tanning beds are going to catch up with me. My dad is like in his 80s though, and he doesn't have any wrinkles at all, like none. So maybe it just won't hit me. But then it's like, why do I even care, right? These are the things that I'm like, it's a work in progress trying to be in a liberated mindset. And like, no one should come here expecting that I am doing this perfectly. And, we should be gentle with you. Be gentle with me. Does anyone watch Dr. Dre? She's the reason I wear sunscreen every day. When I first started watching her, I definitely got into wearing sunscreen more. Now I basically just avoid it, but I'm like severely vitamin D deficient, and I'm working on that. Got some vitamins. Got my vitamins right here. It's a constant struggle. I totally agree. Love yourself. A lot of age is genetic. My parents both look young for their age. Most people don't think I'm 44. My sister is 43 or 44, and she looks like a freaking teenager, dude. Blorbo, I tell myself I'm a vampire. Oh, for being pale, yes. Yeah, it's just something I have to work on. I have to be like, and I put myself on the internet, like I don't have to do that. And it probably would be mentally healthier for me if I didn't. But then there's some things that I like about it. So I don't know. Abby lives in Florida. That's a one thing, being from Connecticut, we have so little sun anyways. Most of us are vitamin D deficient. Sunscreen. I think if you just use like a regular zinc sunscreen, mineral sunscreen is a lot safer than the chemical sunscreens. That's my understanding. But the sun will give you cancer. That's a guarantee. It's like, oh, I'll roll the dice with sunscreen because the sun is guaranteed to give you cancer, basically. What else do we have to talk about? So the wastefulness. Oh, I wanted to tell you guys something. Since we were talking about race today, I went to a concert last week. I went to a concert. It was the Boston Symphony Orchestra. Okay. And they performed some slave music. And the audience was rich white people. And the orchestra is white and Asian, a few Asians, mostly white. And the conductor was white. And the composer who arranged these slave spiritual songs was white. And I didn't know what the concert was. I got invited to it and I didn't know what the music was going to be. And so I get there and I get the program and I am sitting there and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm in this audience of rich white people and the orchestra is white and the chorus is white and the conductor's white and the composer is white, but they're singing these black spirituals, Negro spirituals, okay? And I felt weird about it. But then I was like, is that just the wokeness infecting me, feeling weird about it? Because, like, what's the alternative? The alternative is white people should just sing white music, right? Does anyone have any, like, I was like, oh, I want to talk about that on the stream because I had a weird feeling about it, but I didn't know if it's just like my wokeness, like that whole horseshoe theory idea, right? That it's like, oh, well, white people should just stick to white stuff, which is also not good. But then it's like, well, singing these songs that are from African American slaves for entertainment or edification or something. They credit it. Dude, they wrote a whole essay about why we're doing this and why this isn't cultural appropriation and all this other stuff. They were like, this is cultural appreciation, not cultural appropriation. And I was like, okay, like I kind of get that. I feel like they should identify at what point in the pipeline it seems like Black people get filtered out of these positions. That's a good point. Why is everyone white and Asian? True. I think that's a great point. Yes, exactly. Why, the audience being white, I mean, I don't think they can really control that too much. Like it's in a super white area, but and it's like just whoever shows up. But the orchestra, could they have a diversity initiative so that it's not like totally white, the songs are not copyrighted. I worked at a similarly posh performing arts center that did source Black performers who did this in front of a white audience, then put me in charge as the one Black manager around. They had 4 soloists and one was Black and one was Korean, I think. They had a lot of Koreans. and then 2 were white. So the soloists, there was a Black soloist, but I think maybe they have like 1 or 2 Black people in the chorus. It's always going to be awkward because of the history. And it was like beautiful music too. Like that's the other thing. It was beautiful, but I was really like, it took me out of it. It took me out of the appreciation of it because I was like, something felt like off about it. You know what I mean? Rachie Wu says, I'm a mixed Black girl and I know what you mean. I don't like the demonizing of sharing different cultures, music, fashion, hairstyles, etc. I agree. I think we should all we have a lot to gain from appreciating each other's cultures, but it's like, how do you do it? No yoga teacher is ever Indian, despite it both being from India and lots of Indian people being into yoga. Why is that? Because Desis don't have the look. Well, there aren't a lot of Indian people around here to teach yoga for the demand of yoga teachers. I've I read the yoga subreddit, and occasionally there's Indian people who are kind of pissed about white appropriation of yoga. And then they're like, thanks, Radical. Thank you for the sticker. But then there are Indian people who are appreciate it. It's oh, it's really cool that white people are into this thing, So, orchestras tend to have a blind audition process that makes the most sense, right? You're just doing it on the sound of the person. I mean, basically, you can't even really see what they look like. When the audience is patting themselves on the back, it's different. I think that's probably what was happening in your concert. Or I don't even know if that's what was happening, but I was just that's what I'm saying. It just gave me a weird, especially because this was a really upper class audience too. It's of ultra liberal rich people. That's what it is. They're super liberal New England rich people, send their kids to liberal art schools and stuff like I know those people. I just went because I got invited and whatever. I think a lot of the upper levels of classical music are racially stratified because of economic factors. Richer kids can afford private tutors and whatnot, I'm sure. Yeah, and it's I mean, you could definitely have more scholarships and stuff like that to, yeah. And incidentally, this concert was right across the lake from Kripalu at Tanglewood. So it's a nice area. Very nice up there. Very fancy, schmancy. Who's materially profiting off of these practices? Good point. I mean, I love yoga. I do yoga every day. It's a huge part of my life. I've been doing yoga longer than I've been doing anything else in my life. I've been doing yoga for 19 years. It's been the one constant in my life through so much change. I can't imagine life without yoga. I definitely I haven't gone deep into the outside of asanas, right? But I definitely feel a spiritual feeling when I do yoga. Sometimes I even feel kind of high when I do yoga. So that's that. That covers everything on my topics. I know there was some, we have a few minutes. I wrote some other stuff down, but I'm a little disorganized. Here it is. Oh. I think since 2020, what has annoyed me is the circumstances under which this programming started to get chosen. It's all very performative, which is unfortunate because what can you do? Yeah, I totally agree. It's almost in the context of this article we read too today, where it's just like she talks about that, right? She says like, oh, having some girls who have darker hair, having some girls who have this, extremely light-skinned black girls or something or whatever is like, is that the diversity like we should be aiming for? It feels so like decorative. It feels so like an afterthought almost, it's not like true integration where there's like a lot at stake, like true integration, if that makes sense. Useless Strawberry is telling y'all, give a like. Do you like this? Are you hate watching? Give it a thumbs down, to interact in some way. I like you. Okay. Very quickly, Lucy Letby, the serial killer of babies in the UK. Horrible story. There were actually three stories this week that I wanted to go over super quickly. Lucy Letby killed like 9 babies or something in the UK. And she was a nurse, neonatal nurse in the like ICU, neonatal ICU or something. Is that what it's called? NICU nurse. People have heard this story. Chat. All these babies kept dying, and she was like the one common denominator. So then a bunch of doctors and nurses sent a letter to the hospital administration and were like, oh, okay, Blorbo hasn't heard the story. So a bunch of doctors so this nurse was working in this neonatal ICU, like super premature babies, like 6-month-old babies or whatever. Or like they cooked for 6 months, you know what I mean? And then these babies just kept like randomly dying for no reason, like way, way more than they normally do. And in fact, there was like a set of triplets where just 2 of the babies died, like totally randomly. And these doctors and nurses noticed that this woman was like the common denominator. Like she was always on shift when these babies were dying. And they wrote a letter to the hospital administration, and the hospital administration said, y'all are rumor mongers, and you need to apologize to her for thinking that she could have had anything to do with this. So they made them apologize to her. And then they finally kind of like looked into it, I guess, and were like, oh yeah, looks like she is killing them. And then they got her, and she is going to prison for the rest of her life. Horrible. As much as I'm like an anti-natalist and everything, and I really don't think anybody should be having babies, like if you took the time to cook it, like, I mean, that's just like a bridge too far, right? That's horrible. But you don't see like, what's so interesting about that story, and I have 2 other stories real quickly, is like, yeah, she didn't fit the typical profile of a serial killer. Apparently no motive, but they found some notes that she wrote to herself that were like kind of psychotic and demonic or whatever. Yes, once they're born, we keep them. And we love them and we nurture them once they're here, for sure. I think they said there was a forensic psychiatrist, I guess, who was involved, and he said like maybe the motive was that she liked to be around grieving parents, and she kind of like got some control or whatever. Babies are innocent and helpless, still annoying, but of course they're defenseless, especially these like premature babies. Abby says apparently she had a childish bedroom with tons of toy stuffed animals. Oop, don't look behind you. I was actually thinking, man, I forgot where I saw this. Oh yeah, like she had a notebook or something that was very like childlike looking notebook. I think that was this case. But I was like, "Oh yeah, it's very common actually for women even and maybe even as women get older to have things like, stuffed animals and so like my grandmother who was like died when she was like 87 or something. She had her whole house was like full of dolls and stuff. Um Childish bedrooms are um I don't know. That's like just kind of like a thing though, right? Like I guess like is it weird? Is it weird to have stuffed animals in your room as an adult? I don't think so. It's cute. It's cozy, whatever. Okay, anyways. All right, next case I want to talk about. I should be bringing up let me okay. Mackenzie Shirilla. I'm like, what can I share without okay, I can share this. Did you guys hear about this one? Mackenzie Shirilla. We're just doing like women criminals epilogue here. This is very true too. I feel like I had a few toys as a kid, but I definitely like my appetite for toys and stuff was like not satisfied by what my parents bought me. I should probably be grateful for what I did have though. But I had like one Barbie. You know what I mean? Like you go over to a friend's house and they've got like 15 Barbies. I had one Barbie. And it was probably like a hand-me-down Barbie from my sister. You know what I mean? Okay, so Mackenzie Shirilla, our next case, she was fighting with her boyfriend, 17 years old, in Ohio. Had a boyfriend had a friend. They were all friends. Fighting with her boyfriend. They had a tumultuous relationship. They were all in the car together and she said, "You know what? If we're going to keep fighting, I just want to die." And she drove the car into a brick wall or something. She drove the car into a wall at 100 miles an hour and she survived by some miracle. But her boyfriend and her friend were killed. And she was found guilty in a court of law of murder. Her defense was she was trying to commit suicide, which is not a defense against murdering someone. If you murder someone or if you kill someone, I guess I mean, I guess you could get like manslaughter or something. It's not necessarily murder. If you try to KYS, I already said all the words anyways now. If you try to do that and you happen to K someone in the process, it still could be murder. So when I heard this story, and she was just sentenced. She got 15 years in prison for killing both kids. And she could have gotten 30. So she got 15 to life. The judge could have given her 30. It was actually two 15-year sentences, but to be served at the same time. Consecutive, is that what that's called? Concurrent. Instead of one after the other. So I think the victims' families were kind of disappointed. But like the first thing, but she got 15 to life. So she'd be eligible for parole in 15 years, but parole board could say no and they could keep her in there for forever. But like, I tend to be pretty sympathetic towards women and women criminals. And my first thought to this is to kind of victim blame the boyfriend, because it is so rare and so unusual for a girl to do something violent like this. It's not impossible, but it would be very outlier. It's not, again, it's not impossible. It's more like I'm just curious what this relationship was like. What do you guys think? The chat seems to have died. Are you there? Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret. So yeah, I think it's just perplexing. I would be curious to see what their relationship was like that would cause this girl to do this. It's totally wild. Okay, so that's Mackenzie Shirilla. I can't believe that no one has chatted in like 4 minutes. Like, there's got to be something wrong, right? Or let me know one way or the other. You all just quiet. It happens. Then we have, let me open a new window real quick. Another story. Lauren Pazienza. This story is crazy too. Did you guys hear this one? She was a woman in Manhattan. I guess she was like drunk or something. And she was so drunk, she got kicked out of a bar, and she was pissed. So she crossed the street and just shoved the first person that she saw, because she was like pissed about getting kicked out of this bar. And it was an 87-year-old woman who fell and like hit her head or something and died. What? Why? What? That is so crazy. It's such a crazy story. And she got 8 years in prison, which is like nothing. She killed somebody. Totally inexcusable. She pled guilty, and I think she could have gotten 25 years to life, but because she pled guilty, they gave her a lighter sentence. So that's your roundup of lady criminals, true crime for the week. I just like my news feed. I don't know if it was like my algorithm or something, but I just kept coming across these things. I'm like, is this like, what's going on? Like, what, something in the water? Why are women like wilding out right now? Oh, chat, where'd you go? I now I know there's something wrong, because no one would not be chatting for this long. Let me go on YouTube. But I'm going to say goodbye kind of soon anyways, but I don't know why this freaking happens. It's really annoying. Let's see, go to my channel. It's annoying. Oh, I can see the chat on YouTube. It's a freaking StreamYard issue. Hi. Okay, now I can see you because I have YouTube open, but it might make my stream. Yeah. You're alone in the, you're not alone in the void. You have each other, but I can see you now. but it's super annoying. But let's see. Okay, let me see what y'all said about. Okay, True Crime Edition. It's so disappointing to me because it's like I'm like, oh, are they like just listening? Like sometimes that happens. But I like want to see what you have to say. That's the fun of discussing these things with you guys. Okay. I don't know how she was able to drive a car into a wall hard enough to K herself, but not the other two passengers. Yeah, that's so crazy to me. And also, like, I think the reason why she got murder for that was she had driven that route the day before and like kind of practiced it out. So they were like, well, that's pretty premeditated right there. Existential says it's stupid, histrionic teenage behavior. I wouldn't attribute it to criminality. She did kill 2 people, though. My first thought was if she was already that messed up, I guess she's going to get more messed up. The judge was like, I'm giving you 15 to life, but I don't think that you'll ever get out, which is such a weird thing to say. It's like, well, she has a potential to get out. 15 to life too, and she's been in prison since she was 17, so she's 19 now. That's 13 more years. She's gonna be out when she's 32. That's like pretty young, by the way, or she could be out then. Let's see. Oh, Caro, hey, I'm just shy but listening. Thank you for chiming in. I'm surprised people give so much attention to these types of stories. Well, always when it's a woman perpetrator, right? Like everybody's just that. I feel like that gets a lot. People are, the P word pass, it's like, not really. I feel like women are scrutinized a lot more. Abby Graves says about the third story, she went for a 4-foot tall old woman. Fatally shoved is not a phrase you hear often. Useless says Norwegian prison time quite similar. I've noticed everyone getting more psycho lately. Just hair triggering tempers. I know. More women rage coming out. Totally agree. And Existential says, our mother Lisa has returned. Yeah, but 17-year-olds are freaking idiots, so it's possible she really thought only she would die. I doubt that. Today we learned that joining a sorority won't give you male power, but if you dig down deep, you can achieve male violence. Equality! Yay! Lily says, can't confirm I was dumb as hell at 17. Me too, dude. Like you don't really get a developed brain until you're like into your 30s. So there is that. Anyways, I think that's about all I have. By the way, it's day 1 of my period for anyone else who's out there who's on their period right now. We're synced up. And see, I'm like looking at the chat and I'm wanting to like click the button, to highlight your chats, and I can't. I just have to read them. Existential says more female serial killers. Girl bossify crime. Totally agree. I think the chat was really good today. Congrats on getting my period. Thanks. I really appreciate that. Another month that I have stayed child free, as they call it, a G0. That's what I am. Never been pregnant. My biggest accomplishment in life is having never gotten pregnant. Isn't that nice? I want to say thank you for the wonderful chat and insightful chat. I know it was like very, very all over the place today. My energy, my ADHD, I'm just like, whoa. So thank you for making it through this experience. We made it through together. I loved the article. I'm definitely going to look for more of her work. I don't think I was like a huge fan of her her article about being blonde. Thank you, Blorbo. I feel so humbled. Thank you. That's so nice. And I can see the sticker too. Thank you. Video games this weekend? Yeah, we probably could. I've been like busy the last couple weekends, but yeah, we should probably do some video games. Might do some Life is Strange Before the Storm. It's very like, yeah, we're having this crazy like cozy weather here. So I feel like Life is Strange Before the Storm could be like a kind of a little cozy game to play. That is totally possible. And what else? Expired milk. By the way, Blorbo, yeah, I really do appreciate that. I appreciate your chats as well too, and participating in the chat. That's crucially important to the existence of this channel. By the way, if you didn't watch the video about sororities and that's a topic you're interested in, please please do watch it, because I sent it to a friend of mine and they were like, I think this is your best video ever. So yeah, I think it flowed really well. I was actually very happy with how it came out. I worked on that video. I wrote that essay 2 months ago, and I started working on the visuals a pretty long time ago too. And then I was like, I just need to finish this thing up. And then I saw this article and I was like, oh, that'd be a good Friday stream. So let me finish this thing by Thursday. And yeah, so please, 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 please watch it. Lily says it was bomb. Thank you. Thank you. Also, yeah, I don't know. I just work so hard on those videos. I think for next week, I am going to be talking about why I don't date men, which I think will probably get more views. Expired. I showed your Billie Eilish video to my dad the other day, which has messed up his YouTube algorithm. He's very allergic to feminism. Victory. Good. Nice. Yeah, I think that's all I've got for today. I am going to listen to that podcast about the gender critical conservatives and stuff. I am so glad that women are talking about that. And we'll probably talk about it more at some point too. But I kind of live for the Jane Claire Jones KJK drama on Twitter. It's, it's unhealthy for me, so I don't look at it that often, but it's always a entertaining. It's always it's my real housewives, Loved the sorority video. Thank you, Rachie Woo. Appreciate that. I worked super hard on it. And yeah, existential, let's dunk on scrotes. Why men ain't shit. Oh, I hope you do watch the movie on HBO. It is, it's well worth watching. I've watched it 3 times now to take notes for my thing, and I thought it was really good. It's a great movie. I actually thought about writing fan mail to the director, but I was like, that's like a little too cringe for me. There was something, this is what I do. I'm like, oh, I'm done. No, there's something else I want to talk about. No, I'm done. I forget. Anyways, we're already like way over time. So I'm going to let you all go. And I'll see you next week. Thank you for joining me. I'm humbled by your presence, and I appreciate your thumbs up. If you haven't given this video a thumbs up yet, please do so on your way out. Class dismissed. Love you all. Bye.